In 1970, Milton Friedman decreed, there is one and only one social, stop guys, there is one and only one social responsibility in business. To use its resources and engage in activities designated to increase its profits so long as it stays within the rules of the game. Critically analyse this decree in terms of the development of corporate social responsibility. So I would start off with a quote and what Friedman says. And then I would explain what it means. Well, what more explanation do you need? Milton Friedman decreed there is one and only one social responsibility of business. I will explain that the corporation is a separate legal entity. That the director's duties are to the corporation and then secondary to other stakeholders, corporations and only then other stakeholders. It is its legal designation. And that's the heart of the problem, isn't it? You get that? So explain, well, what does this quote mean? It means that the corporation is a separate legal entity. That the director's duties, we have director's duties. They say the director's duties are to the corporation, and only after the corporation other stakeholders come in. The legal designation is to the corporation. So that means the directors only make decisions to the advantage of the corporation. The question is handing out money to the advantage of the corporation? Well, that depends on if you can measure it and make sure you're going to get a kickback on it, isn't it? So, but that's how you open this up. You say, yeah, this is the heart of the problem here. The legal designation says directors' duties are to the company. So then you're going to have to say, but there is and has been since the 70s a recognition, and here's your but there has been a recognition of CSR. And the big writers on it are Carroll and the pyramid. And let's say, what are advantages of CSR and disadvantages of CSR? So before you come to a conclusion, this is the way you're going to do it. Now guys, I'm doing what you're going to do when you're sitting all on your own trying to figure out how you're going to do this. Isn't that right? So yeah, like let's be logical, right? But if you do it with me, you'll do it with more confidence, won't you? So yeah, corporate social, separate legal entity. The real hub of the problem is that the corporate is a separate legal entity. Its primary duty of the directors is to the corporation. But there has been this idea of corporate social responsibility. So you're going to have to define what corporate social responsibility is, if you can. And you might need one or two definitions to try and explain what it is. And then you might say, I'm just going to tell you now that it has also evolved into CSR, but I'll deal with corporate social, to ESG, but I'll deal with corporate social responsibility firstly. Let me just tell you, Carroll was the writer on that. He came up with this notion that corporations are like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Guys, can I keep going? Like, nods would be helpful if everyone is happy on this, right? Yes. Okay, so you can come back and photograph this if you want later, okay? So it's developed, so these are the advantages of CSR, and ultimately when you are doing out the advantages and disadvantages, you're going to ultimately come to the conclusion that CSR is difficult to measure. Also, it doesn't go with... Now guys, I'm going to put this on this notes. I do not want to see this in your essay, but just so you know, It doesn't go with unsexy charities, okay? I do not want you to write that on your essay. I just want you there for you to remember, oh, I know what she means. It won't go with suicide, and it won't go with, you know, some of these, you know, darker charities. All it'll do is to be associated with the happy clappy ones, isn't that right? Less sexy. I don't want that in the thing, okay? So it doesn't go with the unsexy, S-E-X-Y, charities. So we say it's hard to measure. It doesn't go with unsexy charities. Is there a return for the company? They were all the kind of downsides of CSR, wasn't that right? Even though we know on the triangle that it's desired, like for sure, but these were the downsides. So then we say it morphed into ESG. And then we have to explain what ESG is. And you know, you could actually say, you know, Friedman says this, and you know, in relation to CSR, I kind of tend to agree with them because it's not measurable, it's not this and the other. But now that CSR has evolved into ESG, that might be a different ball of wax. And let me tell you what ESG is. And let me tell you what the perceived advantages of it are. And let me tell you the upside and downside of it. And now, what do I think Milton Friedman's view is in relation to ESG? Well, let me have a look at that. Well, I'm not so sure versus ESG. I'm kind of sure that it's not great on CSR, but when it lines up against ESG, which is quite convincing, I might have a different line to take. So, explain ESG. Advantages and disadvantages over CSR, and then line up Milton Friedman versus ESG and come to a conclusion. And we're going. You'd be hard pressed to do all that in 3,500 to 4,000 words, won't you? Now, is everyone going to